I had been back to doing my morning radio show for 1 week post-maternity leave. And there had been abuse in the marriage. So, and things that I guess I just didn't know any different. And I was raised that marriage was like the end all be all and fight for your marriage. And there was a lot of shame if your marriage ended. But I knew that there was abuse before the wedding, but the invitations had already gone out and I was too ashamed to tell anyone.
Did you feel like that you had to be submissive as well? Did you have any of that in you subconsciously?
100%. And I didn't have a lot of confidence yet. I was young. I was a young woman.
Yeah.
I was a young woman. And I just I wasn't who I was supposed to be yet. I didn't want to disappoint people. And I think there's this thing that you go through when you experience domestic violence and there's a lot of shame and you don't want people to know because you think, how could this have happened to me? Like, I'm strong. Why would this happen to me? And then you lose your strength. It got better. It got worse. It flows. You think, okay, we're going to work on this. We're going to save it.
I hear it's common that you think it's your fault and then you justify it. Did that happen? It did.
100%. So then you become a shell of a person because you're always walking on eggshells just to keep the peace. And you think, I'm doing good now because they're not mad, because everybody's safe, because there's no yelling. So you end up kind of creating this fake life because you're just trying to not have the abuse happen. So you become a shell of your person. It was like I would just not spend any money, not challenge things that I didn't think were okay. Just be very, very.
So that's great. You're not even thinking about how do I become happy. You're just thinking, how do I stay safe? How do I not?
Correct.
Wow, that's a terrible way to live.
It was 12 years.
Oh my gosh.
But you don't even know any. And I look back, it's like that was another person. She was another woman. I don't even recognize her. She was a brunette, for heaven's sakes. But but I love her, and I have so much grace and understanding for how she got to that point. But it all came to a head, actually, when I was about 34, and the kids were 4, 2, and 8 weeks. And he came home from a business trip and just said, I'm leaving you tonight. And I had no warning. And of all the craziest things I said, in that moment, I said, well, we're out of milk.
Wow. That shows the state that you were living in, too. Your brain's not even fully working under that amount of pressure. What was the environment like leading up to that? Did you see it coming? Was it normal?
I mean, I didn't know what normal was. We weren't happy. Everything was hard. And I think I just thought, well, if I have another baby, everything's going to be fine. And, I'm working hard to do my part and not anger him. And I'm doing all these nice things. And I didn't see him leaving coming like that. I thought that I had no clue that he was ready to end things. Hindsight, I was like, oh, he was taking a lot of phone calls. He was going on a lot of business trips. Hindsight gives you a lot of clarity.
Yeah, always.
But when you're have 3 children under 4 and you're not sleeping,
That's so insane.
And you're also getting up at 5 a.m. to do a morning radio show, you're not paying attention to the
And like you said, you're a public persona. I was in sales quite some time. No matter what's going on in your personal life, you have to go and be on and present. That takes a different kind of toll. It is so hard to do when anything is unsettled at home. So you doing that for that long, my hat's off to you there.
I was like, I should have an Oscar.
Yeah.
No.
So
I said, we're out of milk. And he left. Came back, brought milk.
No, he didn't.
Yes.
I can't.
Isn't it crazy? It's fun. No, you can laugh. It's a long time. A lot of healing, a lot of therapy over this moment.
Yeah, I can feel that you've healed from it. So.
But brought the milk and then it was gone. But that was a good ending. That was when I was the caterpillar. I was crawling around in the dirt. And it was like, it must have been like, okay, it's time to get in the cocoon and heal, Amanda. But it was still scary. I thought I felt thrown away with the trash. I felt like my life was ruined. I felt like I was going to get fired. The radio station I worked with was owned by a church. All fears that were not real, false evidence appearing real. None of that stuff was true, but I believed that it was true. And that's what I think anyone facing an ending is just like, don't believe the negative thoughts of, oh my God, this is over in your head. Because really an ending is just ready for the next thing that's going to be awesome if you play it right. So I immediately went to therapy, and my therapist had me read this book, Man's Search for Meaning, classic by Viktor Frankl. It's about how to find meaning during times of suffering. Of all things, it's about the Holocaust. I'm like, why? My husband just left me. I have 3 children. And you want me to read a book about the Holocaust?
Yeah, this better be good.
But it's amazing. It changed my life. And I was reading this book. I was sitting at a Panera just outside of Washington, D.C. This was the only time my ex-husband had visitation with the kids. Because he'd come over for a couple hours to the house to see them. And at this point, it sounds so bizarre and embarrassing, but anyone that has been through abuse will understand. I was trying to save the marriage, even though I had found out there had been an affair and there had been years of abuse, but I had just had a baby and I had 3 little kids. I didn't have my own bank account. I didn't know the password to the bank account. I wasn't allowed to have it. I was not making that much money at this small radio station. I knew I couldn't afford our house. And so I tried to save it. I think my therapist it was her plan to tell me that wasn't worth saving in a roundabout way by assigning me this book. She allowed me to come to that. And I was reading this, and it was about, and there's a line from Friedrich Nietzsche that says, "He who has a why to live can bear anyhow." And it's about surviving the Holocaust. Those that had a why to live, a why on the outside, survived. I'm not comparing my suffering to their suffering.
That was a great analogy.
But it gave me a great understanding. And then I realized it's like they had a why to live. No matter how hard it was, there was hope on the other side.
Do you think someone can create a why if they don't have one?
That's the first thing we do in my coaching program for single moms.
I'm getting it. So tell me what, okay, so he brought the milk and then he left.
Right.
And then you seek counseling. What happened to you at that? Did you hit a low and rebuild? I mean, what did it look like after that?
I discovered that I was worthy of more and that I had a voice. And after reading that book, I remember I finished the book and I shut it from Panera, and I went back to the house where he was watching the kids. And I said, I want you to get out, and I'm not going to work on this marriage anymore, and you're never going to hit me or hurt me again. Wow. And he's like, and I was scared to death to do that, but I needed to have that powerful thing. And then he left and then started all the legal stuff. But I think that was that moment where I was just building myself up in my courage. And I leaning into my faith as well. Because brave is one of my favorite things. That's why I call my organization Brave Single Moms. It's not that we have the absence of fear. It's just that we have fear and keep moving forward anyway. And I had read Joshua 1:9, "For have I not commanded you to be strong and courageous? And I'll go with you wherever you go." And I thought, oh crap, it's not an option. Like so many of us were like, a bad thing happens, right? And I had every reason to crawl in a hole and stay there, and probably nobody would have blamed me. But I was like, well, that's not an option. I have to be strong and courageous.
Did it ever seem like an option? Did you ever give in to that instinct and just say, you know what, I give up. Like, I'm just not going to get up today or this month, or what did that look like?
For weeks or months, I would just I was just function. I was just like the kids were eating, right?
Bare minimum.
I mean, they were eating fine, but it was like I was just barely functioning on my own with them. And I remember I was laying in bed one day because I would nurse the baby all night. I didn't have any help, and just laying there. And my daughter, my oldest daughter, she was 4 years old at the time, and she would open up her blinds in the morning. And when she saw sunshine, it was a nice day. That means she got to go outside and play. So she said, "Mommy, it's happy outside." And I did not feel like anything was happy at the time. And that was the turn. When she said that, and I got up in bed, I was like, oh my God, my daughter thinks that it's happy outside. I have got to get it together, and we have to have a happy life. And
what was your first move?
we went on a wagon ride.
That's awesome.
That's what bravery is. Like, really, it's just doing one brave thing at a time. That's what one of the pillars of my program is about, just being 1% more brave every day. So one minute I was taking my kids on a wagon ride around the neighborhood. Because once you have the third kid, it's like everything's harder. It's like, okay, there's two places in the wagon and there's one here and I'm one parent. So I had the baby strapped to me and the two kids in the wagon. I'm like, let's go on a wagon ride. It's happy outside, guys. And, we
So
just
you basically gave the middle finger to depression at that point.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a big win.
Oh, I never thought about it that way. You're right. Just a wagon ride.
Yeah.
But then I just kept doing one thing a day to just, what can I do to get out of this situation? What can I do? And I had a great group of friends around me. That's really important. I think another pillar of success for single moms or anybody is to have the right support system of people, like having other single moms that know what you're going through. You have other friends, but has somebody lived that? That's another really important pillar.
How can you find that? Are there support groups or anything like that?
That's why I created what I created for brave single moms, so we can have each other. We meet online and it's wonderful. But I think there's somebody like you everywhere. It's just, you have to get out of your own head and talk to the mom that's at the park. You have to get out of our self-isolation and also be authentic about, like, how are you doing? Like, I'm really in a bad place. Like, are you okay? That's what I did. And I had this friend, Juliet, just one of the preschool moms. And I think she was one of the first people that I told that my husband had left. And she immediately, we always think people are going to judge us. But really, I think it's the natural human instinct to be like, well, what can I do? We hide so many secrets of what's going on in our lives because we're so afraid of judgment. But I think most people are walking around carrying a bunch of secrets, hoping that nobody notices.
Definitely.
And instead, and when you finally are the one that's open in the relationship, that somebody goes, oh, you know what, I'm struggling with something too. It gives them permission. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you have an authentic support system, an authentic relationship. It just takes you the guts to open up. I think it's so important.
Yeah, my last guest was talking about that. If you want to create a safe environment for someone else, you lead with your own secret or whatever it is.
Whatever your struggle.
So you were, I mean, how did you view your financial future or your dating future? How did you look at all that? Because that's probably one of the harder parts when you get out. How am I going to pay my bills? Is anyone ever going to date me again? I mean, tell me about that.
Yeah, I thought I was ruined. So I always saw my mom struggle. And then my stepdad always took care of us. It's embarrassing. I never paid a bill because I was always raised that was the man's responsibility to do. That's all I saw. And I just decided to learn it and figure out what I needed. Thank goodness I had a great education and I was somewhat smart. So I just decided to pour into learning how I manage finances, asking how to manage finances. Dating was a disaster because I had 3 children and I felt like I would be a burden to anyone else. But I was wrong. I was completely wrong. And reached out and learned how to date and did it horribly sometimes and had some good smaller relationships. And you just, I don't know. I just decided to live my life being strong and courageous. Moving, even if I had fear, that was a sign that that's exactly what I'm supposed to do. Okay, so you're really afraid of managing finances. Well, then that's the thing you gotta, because I'm commanded to be strong and courageous. It's not an option. And I had this strong faith that I knew that God was with me, and that He wasn't mad at me, and that He would give me strength. I felt that.
Did you ever feel guidance from Him?
100%.
Tell me about that. How did you identify it and know which direction to go? Maybe an intuition or gut feeling, answered prayer, coincidence.
Oh,
what do you think?
That's a good question. I've always felt a presence in my life since I was a little girl. And I've always felt like a calling. I knew that I was supposed to help others, love others. And I've always felt that God had a job for me. And I don't think I hear His voice, but I I've spent a lot of time as a little girl praying and learning about prayer and talking to him and feeling a knowing, a leading, and this is what I'm supposed to do, an intuition that, hey, be careful, or an intuition of, hey, like, I want you to go for this. And
Can
I
you
think,
describe those
yeah,
two feelings? So the
okay.
be careful, where do you feel that in your body? And is there an example? And then the, hey, go this way. I mean, is it
Oh,
like a
that's a good
gut
question.
feeling?
Like,
Yeah, it's probably intuitive and second nature to you at this point, but I don't
yeah.
think a lot of people realize that you can hone that skill. You can build
Oh,
that muscle of divine intuition if you want.
yeah. And now I do it like I meditate every single morning and I listen and I put on music and I'm like, okay, what's going on? And feeling that inner feeling. I think it's a tightness in my chest when I get scared or a tightness in my throat, but it's not fear. Because I think too many people think if they're afraid, that's a sign they're not supposed to do something. It's a knowing. It's like that's not good for me. It's a red flag.
Yeah, and
It's a mental red flag.
I think anyone that has had something, been a victim of something horrible, well, I shouldn't say
Maybe.
anyone, but they can probably look back and say, I ignored that feeling. I ignored that
Yeah.
gut feeling. I knew I shouldn't have done that. I didn't feel good about that. The energy wasn't right. And so that's
Yeah.
why I was asking that is how do you pay attention to that?
Yeah.
What about when you feel like you're supposed to go a certain way? What does that look like?
There's like a push. I swear to God, I wish God would work differently with me sometimes, but I guess this is how it is. He ends something. Like ending my marriage. Like I knew that I didn't have the guts to leave that relationship. And I'm embarrassed of that. So he did it for me. Sometimes God can heal a relationship and sometimes he knows it's better to heal you. And
It's nice to see that in hindsight,
right? Right. And when I noticed that there's a line in the sand that something is ending, even a job he's ended for me. Like I've gotten fired as a single mom with 3 kids because I knew he didn't want me to be in radio anymore. Because I knew I had this knowing of I want to create this awesome program for single moms. I want to do online courses and I want to help single moms learn what I didn't know when I first became a single mom, how to co-parent, how to manage your own money, how to date without keep dating the same toxic relationships, like all of these things that I kind of had to figure out the hard way. Like, how can I help others not have it use me as the cautionary tale so they can have a different story? And I dabbled in online courses and I read about them and I took the courses and I never did the thing. And then it was like, guess what? I'm going to pull this out and then here's your little severance. And why don't you go create the thing you've been wanting to create? I'm like, oh, okay.
What was your first step in creating it?
I created a pathways journal. So I had a mentor tell me to do this. And I was like, well, what the heck do I do now? Like I remember I was driving home from doing my last radio show ever. And I knew it. I was like, great, single mom. I have 3 kids. I have a mortgage. And the Christian station just fired me. I'm not going to do another show. And I was happy because I had so many endings leading up to that ending that I had practiced. It's like, that's what bravery is, right? It's like, it's a habit. It's a muscle that you keep practicing and you just keep getting stronger and stronger at it. So, it was like, okay, well, my husband left me with 3 little kids and I was able to transform my life and then move across the country after that and get a national radio show. That worked out. That was evidence that I was going to be okay. And then I had my job at Caleb ended. And I was like, because I didn't fit the brand.
Okay.
So thanks. So I thought I was going to lose my house, but I hatched a plan, kept going. That ended up better. And then this ended. I'm like, no, I'm actually really good at endings now. Like I'm actually really good at reinventing myself because I've had to do it over and over again. So I think at that point I was really excited and happy. And I started a Pathways journal. So I didn't know. I was like, am I going to do podcasting? What am I going to do with all these skills over 25 years in radio? What can I do now? So every morning I wrote down 10 things in this journal of ideas. And I gave myself permission to be done dreaming small. I wish everyone, that's another pillar that I teach in just decide to be done dreaming small. Our limitations are only limiting if we allow them to be. So yeah, was it limiting to become a single mom with 3 little kids, still breastfeeding and being able to move across the country and start a new job and date again? There was a lot of limiting factors. Plus I was driving an old beat up minivan, and who wants to roll up on a date with a minivan with 3 car seats in it? Like, who would want, whatever, like, just keep going. And also I think, again, my outlook and confidence was so low because for whatever reasons, what I had allowed in my life, I had allowed abuse for so long. I had allowed myself to be more submissive than I naturally was. So I had to figure out a way to undo that. And I just decided, well, what if I started my own businesses? Because what do I really want? Because a lot of us walk around having these big dreams and then kind of criticizing ourselves for having the big dream because we're like, oh, well, I couldn't do that. It's like, yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have the financial ability to do that. Well, you can get it. But the biggest thing that I get to teach the moms is to be done dreaming small. We love our families and our children so much that we don't take care of ourselves and we take care of everybody else first. We become martyrs and we put ourselves last. And that's the worst thing you could do. So in research, the long-term health for your children as adults, so they have the best mental health and they have the best relationships in their future, is for their mother to be well and have good mental health and be a good example of a relationship. And it's not, oh, I'm just going to I'm going to die to myself and give everything to my children and not care for myself and never get in a relationship again and never date again. And like, no, God, no. Because your kids need to see you moving on. They need to see you loved. They need to see you love someone else. They need to have a healthy relationship.
Do you ever work with women that are in an abusive marriage trying to get out and are too scared? Is that's kind of a whole different category, right?
Yeah. I've definitely shared my story and encouraged and offered hope and help and numbers to good therapists. Most often in that situation, I love if anyone is in that situation, please reach out to me and we'll share everything that I've experienced. Sometimes when a woman reaches out to me that's going through something like that, it's like I'm talking to my younger self and giving her better advice than I got and just saying, let me tell you here's how it's going to go. And I know it's scary and I know how hard it is but I also know how much better it can get because the ending is good. An ending is not a bad thing. Yeah. Every time something ends, if you play it right, it can get even better.
That's where a support group can come in as well, so you can see all sides of it, right?
Yeah, just don't quit. You're like, I'm just going to give up, And sometimes it just takes somebody in your life to say, why would you quit? Why would you give up? And it takes somebody in your life to say, hey, how about you're done dreaming small? And it says somebody in your life to say, hey, why don't you go do the thing that you've been wanting to do? Because last time I checked, how many lives do we get? We get one. And I want to make mine count.
Love this.
I love being that person for women. And that's one of my favorite things to do is being that person to say, how about you be done dreaming small? How about you not quit? How about you just hatch a plan and we work on our bravery a little bit? So.
That's awesome. What are you most excited about in the next 3 to 5 years? I know you just got married. The course is taken off. What are you excited about?
Yeah, I'm excited about starting a movement of women that are done dreaming small, that choose independence instead of dependence. And I'm almost finished with my book. It's called Hello Courage, 30 Strategies to Silence Fear. I'm excited for that someday to be on a bookshelf. I'm excited to speaking events and planning a retreat and to have like this group of women that have been through the junk of life, but didn't let it get the best of him, and then mentor others and have it spread. I'm looking forward to a large movement of women that are not going to be victims and decide to take their rightful place of leadership in their families and their jobs and in their dreams.
Whew.
Sorry, is that
yes.
you? Sorry.
Goosebumps.
I think we can do it.
Heck yes.
I think so. Do you think I'm crazy? I don't. Sometimes I think I'm crazy. Try being
Proof's
one
in
of my
the
kids.
pudding. Look at your life. Look at where you've come from. Look at the women you're helping. No, I don't think you're crazy.
I hope so.
That's awesome.
My kids, though, try being one of them. They're like, oh my God, she's giving us a speech.
That's how my kids feel. I'm like, no, I have stuff to teach you. No, don't want any part of that.
They're like, oh no, she's wrapping up. Or my husband.
Exactly.
But my husband is, I learned, I think one of the secrets too is having that partner, an equal partner that is your cheerleader and believes in you. I feel like some people say, well, when you're married now, why are you still going to work with single moms? And I was like, well, I think that gives me more credibility.
For sure.
Like,
You did it.
actually.
Your healthy married life now. Like, that's
in my mind.
You can't give away what you don't have, right?
Right. And you find somebody that my husband bought a license plate cover that has my website on it. Like he drives around with a license plate cover that says bebravemama.com.
That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
That's a supportive husband. I love it.
Like, find that guy.
Yeah.
Like, or find that woman.
Or become the woman that's ready for that guy and he'll show up.
There you go. Exactly. Say that one again. That's a good one.
Yeah. Well, that's anywhere in life. I think people are waiting to achieve the reality they want to then have the reality make the person that they want to be.
Right.
Versus you have to become the person to attract that reality. I butchered that, but you know what I'm saying.
No, exactly. Well, that's why we go into the cocoon and we work on ourselves before we date. So I always say, it's like, we got a 6-month rule here. We have a 6-month rule before any dating apps.
That's fair. And that's generous. Most people would say a year, I'm sure.
Well, I know if I say a year, I'd probably scare everybody away.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of branding and marketing there. But yeah, so let's work on yourself first so that you choose that. So you enter the dating world to be able to choose the person that you get to be with, not the person that you have to be with. Because if you're still in the have to, you're going to ignore red flags and you're going to repeat the cycle. But if you're like, that's okay, dude, I don't need to be with you.
Right. Because you're going to make yourself and you're secure with yourself.
And you have a clear vision and a mission in your life where you know where you're going and you know what you want. So no one can get in the way of that.
Do you have any advice or input for single moms that are hearing this and didn't even know that such a field existed? And they're like, oh, I'm not worthy. And what would you say to a single mom watching this?
I know how hard it is and I know how it feels. But I don't want you to believe the lies in your head that are telling you that you're not good enough and that there's something wrong with you. Instead, I want you to believe that little girl that you were. You know, that little girl, maybe you were 5 or 6 years old and you had these huge dreams for your life and you knew that you could be Wonder Woman, right? You could be absolutely anything. Like, go tap into that little girl because she's still inside, and let's go find her and let's go backwards for a little bit. And then let's resurrect her and let's go chase down that better life. Single motherhood is not the worst thing that ever happened to you. It can be a very beautiful journey of this incredible strength, showing your children resilience, learning so much and learning how to grow and a special bond with your children that you never knew that you could have. And lean into it and double down and just
That's fantastic.
don't be a victim.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a comment. Show these guests some support. What part impacted you the most so we can make them feel really good. These are real stories and raw emotions. Thank you.